Hi, and welcome to If These Heels Could Talk. I'm JoyGenea with Solutions by JoyGenea.
And I'm Michelle with Bad Cat Digital. And today we are surprising JoyGenea with a topic.
Yes, Michelle, what is our topic? And by the way, she still owes me a couple of these because I used to throw these at her all the time. So I'll totally acknowledge I'm like, this is one of about 3.
Yes.
Yes.
So our topic today.
Yes.
Here's the
Okay,
situation. You ready? You're going to write it down? Here's the situation.
Yes.
I decided to grow my hair out. That's not the topic. I decided to grow my hair out. It's a very short conversation.
Really?
I decided to grow my hair back out.
What's considered growing out now? Wait, before we move on.
Not short, long. Who knows?
Oh,
I don't know.
We're just
who knows?
Oh,
right.
Got it. Okay.
So, I'm sure I'll cut it off again before it gets too long because that's just how I am and I'm very restless. But here's the actual thing. Mm-hmm. There's always that time when you make a decision to make a change, where in the interim time before the change is achieved, it's super awkward.
Yes.
And nowhere is this more obvious than with our hair.
That is so funny.
Because I'm getting this, I'm rocking this mullet look in the back because I'm trying to grow it out.
She's not kidding, by the way. I just checked it out. Yep, you got that.
And it's very like Adam Sandler in The Wedding Singer. And I'm
it's
dealing
not
with
quite that long yet, people.
I'm dealing
she
with
can't
it.
see it. It's not that long.
It's a thing, right?
It's a thing.
And in about a month, I'll be able to kind of it'll be more even and I'll be able to style it differently and do something cuter with it. And in about 2 months, then it'll be longer and I'll have achieved, right?
Yeah.
Or be constantly working on. But there's always that time. And with hair, you can only, you just have to wait. There's nothing you can do to make it grow faster, longer, despite what all of those Cosmos and Tiger Beats told us when we were kids. But there's something you can do. True. But this happens at work all the time. And we're going through this at Bad Cat too. If you,
this is great.
So I'm, own a business, run the business, but I also work directly with clients, and we're in the middle of transitioning that part, making that part of my job less.
Yes.
Not necessarily taking away completely, but making it a lower part of my life. And this was a 5-year plan, and we're in year 2.5. So we're on schedule.
In the middle of the transition.
We're in the middle of the transition.
Got it.
But how does this get communicated through the company? How does this get when you take 2 steps forward with a change and 1 step back, and 2 steps forward and 1 step back, because that's how transition works.
Well, what have you noticed? I want to, if you're comfortable sharing.
Yes.
What have you kind of noticed? What is the clunk clunk is what I would say. What's the gear grind?
I think part of it is that people just, a lot of times, people get very, focused on their job and what they need to get done, and aren't necessarily thinking bigger or around the whole vision, right?
Yep.
So you bring people together, you talk about a vision, or you talk about where you're headed. But again, when it goes from being a thought to being a messy reality, when it goes from being a concrete kind of vision to being the messy reality that won't live up to the vision.
Okay, so the messy reality, I think this is an example. Bad Cat does the social media marketing.
Right.
For the podcast.
Yeah.
Okay. And we're supposed to be having a meeting with the team.
Right.
And the 2 of us have managed to make that as awkward,
as awkward and complicated as it could possibly be.
And the team finally, literally through multiple emails, had to say, you and Michelle need to communicate. You've both said 2 different things. We have you down 2 different places. It's messy.
Yeah.
And so I guess I had a feeling that's what was going, you're in the middle of this transition.
Right.
And the handoff hasn't quite, the system hasn't quite been built. There's what it is.
The system hasn't been built.
And so while you're building it, it can be
messy,
clunky.
and it's frustrating, and it's clunky, and nobody knows what's going on.
And that's why it's perfect. That's part of the power of our podcast is it's a beta zone for both of our businesses. Like it does work as a beta zone. It's like, I'm going to roll this out. Let's try it with the podcast first and see how it goes and learn. It's value. That's one of the values
it's
of
one
this
of the values
for us.
we find. Yes.
Right. But so I was noticing, I'm like, I have a feeling this is part of the awkward transition.
Yeah, it is.
That's so do you do the thought that comes to mind right away is, are you doing things that every once in a while that push people to think outside of their job and maybe that creative, that thing that gets people over in the right side of their brain into the less linear, more.
Yeah. I mean, and I think this is many conversations, but I think that's part of the awkwardness of it, right? Because there's so many things that go into it. And when you're talking about a team of people, every individual brings their own everything to it. Right. So everybody has a different level of comfort with change. Everybody has a different level of comfort with risk tolerance. Everybody has different types of things they want to do and are willing to do, and we all do things for specific reasons. For example, the reason that I let it be super awkward with that, which was good, is because it's really bad form on our side, I believe.
Yeah.
Our side meaning Bad Cat. It's bad form on our side to send a Calendly link to 2 or 3 people.
Yeah.
And say, pick a time.
Yeah.
That's bad form. That's creating a barrier. That's passing the work off to the client. That's not service.
Yeah.
It takes something that's intended to be an efficiency and make something easier for everybody, and it actually makes it harder.
Yep. And
it had to happen. Because it happens with less. It happens like the stakes are less when it's us.
Right. Oh, that's just it. It's
right.
But so much learning.
But to them, it makes their life easier, so they want to do it. So I have to make it painful for them to understand that there's a gap in that system.
Well, so much learning.
Right.
So much learning is in the awkward part of the transition. And as an owner,
and the discomfort and we learn about what our vision truly means when the rubber meets the road. And that's the whole point. Like, we can think of something.
Yes.
We can have a thought, or we can have a direction. But that thought or direction is vague. It doesn't take into account all of the other moving pieces that are going to have to fall into place in order for that to happen.
There's just logistics.
It's kind of like
people.
It's kind of like Disney World. Have you ever been to Disney World?
I have not.
So Disney World,
as far as I ever got, was Valley Fair.
Yeah, Disney World is, and it's not the same. Disney World is a well-honed, well-oiled fantasy machine.
Nice.
Every time, and this truly happens.
Yeah.
Stuff just happens at Disney World.
Oh, fun.
Like, you drop something on the ground, and within 2 minutes, somebody picks it up and throws it in the trash can. Everything is very clean. Everything is freshly painted. Everything is it's like a time capsule. It's Disney
beautiful.
World.
Okay.
It is.
Got it. No, that's not Valley Fair.
But right?
No offense to that.
But the inner workings of that are not beautiful.
Oh, I bet it
is well known to be a challenging working environment.
It's got to be.
They've got so many rules for what people can wear and not wear, and who can work there and why and how. Because you're creating a fantasy, all of the employees are moving parts of that fantasy.
Yeah.
And so everything about them has to be very controlled.
Yeah.
I mean, there are guides, and I don't know that this is still the case, but there are guides for acceptable haircuts, acceptable glasses, acceptable, no facial hair. Like, there are these guides exist. And if you look back, so it is a curated experience, and it's curated and controlled at every level. That does not happen accidentally.
No.
And it does not happen without some pain.
Well, and it does not
happen without awkwardness.
Right. And it doesn't happen overnight.
Right.
Like, they've been around for a long time.
Right.
And it's much easier to have a system and add one little part.
Right.
You're talking about, and this is really
important. I'm talking about creating that system.
Which means taking out of the head of the business owner how something's done,
right?
Why it's done, why the person's been doing it that way. Like it's
right.
And there's so many personal beliefs tied to that,
right?
That are not tied to the next human being because they have their own set of personal beliefs and processes. And that's the awkward.
Right.
And because as business owners, the delegation can be less clear coming from us.
Yes.
That's what I believe. So often we swear we said exactly what we were asking for. It's like, I need you to do this.
Right.
And if they don't ask 8 million questions on the why and the how and the some of that, not from a place of fear, because I've seen that too, where the person is afraid to do anything. So they're like, okay, how do you want this done? And then they only do it the one way.
Right. That's the waiting for permission thing. We've got that in another episode.
No, don't want that. But yet, curiosity. I think the most important thing in this process, what's coming to mind for me, is curiosity from both sides.
Right.
They have to be, every task has to be seen from a cat's perspective. Well, what is this? Can I eat this? What, where did this come from? Like, what should I do with this? Do I barf on it? Do I play with it? Where does it go? Can I?
But that's what I mean. So awkward, yes. Uncomfortable, yes. And at different levels for different people. You make mistakes. You learn along the way. Maybe it was really a bad idea to get bangs and now you're learning and paying for it because it's such an awkward transition to go back to not having bangs. You've done that before.
Yes, and it takes a while.
And this is one of those things that we learn throughout our lifetime that that allows for
you get the new hairstylist.
Right.
Who's like, oh, you'd look great in bangs. And all of a sudden you have bangs. And you're like, my forehead's all broken out. Oh, okay. Yep. That's fine. And then it's like, oh, this isn't.
Okay. These things are in my face.
Yep. And I'm like, and now they're down to my eye level and I'm cutting them at home. And I'm like, yeah, we're done. We're out.
Because I'm not going to the salon every 2 weeks to get my bangs
because that's what that experience is like.
Yep. So it just, at the end of the day, what I really think that most people experience is the awkwardness of transition, and I think it stops.
That's what it
stops change it stops necessary change because there's the fear of that awkwardness, there's the fear of that discomfort, there's the fear of rocking the boat, and there's something to be said for understanding the challenges that are in front of you and knowing how you're going to deal with them. So we experienced this with our project management software. Now I will be 100% honest. I've used 5 different project management softwares.
I know you've been testing a lot.
They all suck. Every single one of them. There's something about them that it creates all kinds of challenges, right?
Mm-hmm. Extra drama.
Yeah. And part of it is this. Part of it is that different people work differently. And the software requires that everybody works the same way.
Everybody thinks the same way, sees this.
Yes.
That their learning style is the same.
And it just is what it is. So no matter how great a piece of software that a team of 10 or 20 or 50 people use, no matter how great it is, there's always going to be things that individuals find annoying about it.
That I think is right there is one of your best, that's a best learning nugget right there about because we're around software so much that you're right. Implementing any type of system and the software that goes with it is some form of
special torture.
It is. It's special torture. And it's the pink couch. That's what I think of.
The pink couch.
It's the stupid.
Talk about the pink couch again. I love the pink couch.
Oh, it's the pink couch thing. It's the thing where 2 people go in furniture shopping and one wants a white sofa and one wants a red sofa and they wander around, but the other person's not willing to give.
Nobody's willing to give.
Right.
Give
and
anything.
So finally they're like, you know what? Fine. I don't want red. You don't want white. Let's just get pink. Nobody wanted pink.
The worst compromise.
Right. And now it's sitting in their house and they're like, but we compromised.
And now we're both unhappy.
Right.
Everybody lost.
All lost.
Yeah.
So you can't do the pink couch thing with this. You have to pick a lane and then hopefully get it.
And then adjust.
Right. And know that 2 or 3 of your, a few of your staff members, they're not going to like it. They're going to be like, this is so not it doesn't make sense to me. Right. I can't hardly use it. It's not. And for those.
And you just have to push through it. You just have to say,
and I've had to implement.
This is what we're using.
I've had to implement software like that. And I've helped them understand that this software was chosen because it met the masses.
Right.
And we understand that it is actually not intuitive for you.
Right.
Like I allowed that, like we explored how they like to learn, and I showed them how to set it up in a way that was closer to their style.
Right.
And just said, like each time you get angry at it, I'm like, just remember, it wasn't built for you.
Right.
Like, so let it go.
Yeah.
This is part of the job. And
you can choose to keep being angry about it, or you can choose to not. But either way, it is what it is.
One chose to stay angry and one moved on. They're like, oh, it's fine. Now that you've made the view kind of like this, they're like, I can get through it.
I can get through this.
I'm okay.
And that's the thing. So here's the thing though.
Yeah.
Knowing that at no point is it ever going to be everything for everybody.
Because we're not settling on the pink sofa.
Right. Well, because the pink sofa is nothing for nobody.
Right.
So knowing that at no point is it going to be everything for everybody.
Yes.
Do you go through the pain and discomfort of trying something, of switching? Or do you just live with the one you know? And
yes to both. There's what I'm going to say.
But we've all done. That's the challenge, right? When you're talking about transitions, there's a point at which the pain of the transition becomes less daunting than the pain of staying where you're at.
Yes, that's the pain threshold.
There are entire industries like banking that are built on this.
Yes,
there's nobody. I mean, not nobody. I love my bank. Very few people will actually like point blank say they love their bank. I love my bank. I love going to my bank. I like the people that work there. I like how I'm treated there. I call, I have a question. I know many of the people in leadership. I have a relationship
with your bank.
Most people
don't.
Mm-hmm. And they stay with their bank that overcharges fees or treats them like crap because they think that there's no other way to do it.
Or it's too hard to move.
Or it's too hard to move.
The banking industry has found that it's just so hard to move.
So hard to move.
Auto pays, your bill pays, all that you just won't go.
The threshold of discomfort for moving.
Oh, it's huge.
Is higher than the threshold of discomfort of lackluster service.
Oh, and high fees. And
this and that.
And losing money. I mean,
because
seriously.
You don't see it. So there's a threshold at which it becomes higher than. And there's a lot of banks out there that rely on that pain threshold and skirt right up to it.
Yeah.
And I think where we saw a lot of this, do you remember back during the pancake breakfast when we were all clamoring for the PPP?
Yes. Yep.
This became glaringly obvious. And I don't think it's as obvious if you're a consumer and that's the way that you interact with your bank. But when you're a business and you need a business bank, their service becomes the life and death of your business. And it's different than
it really does.
It's different than, arguing with somebody over an overdraft fee. It's different than that. And all of a sudden, if it's the life or death of your business, you need that relationship to be good and you have to have put something into it.
Yeah.
And so the people that had relationships with smaller business banks got to those dollars faster.
Oh, absolutely.
Than businesses that were with consumer banks or businesses that were with huge banks.
Yes.
Because all of the news that we saw with the PPP dollars going to these giant companies instead of small businesses who they were intended to help was because the larger banks decided to go with larger depositors first. And so instead of taking applications first come, first serve, they took applications in order of the size of their relationship monetarily.
As a bean counter.
Why wouldn't you?
I was just going to say,
why wouldn't you? If your whole thing is to keep the pain threshold just low enough so that people don't leave, why wouldn't you?
Right.
But what happened is a lot of smaller community banks and business-focused banks got a lot of new customers during that time.
Absolutely.
Because small business owners realized, I think some of them for the first time, how important that business banking relationship is.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing with anything, whether it's a role at a company or rolling out a new position or combining positions and, restructuring some department or just new software for an essential process. The pain of the transition and the awkwardness of the transition, you have to somehow believe it's worth it.
Yeah.
And for my hair, I do. I think growing it out will look good. So I somehow believe it's worth it to look like
and I think
Adam Sandler for a couple of months.
You'll be fine.
Yeah.
It's not bad.
My mullet.
It's not bad.
A little mullet.
You start putting that thing in a ponytail though, we're going to have talks.
I'm not going to put the mullet.
Okay, thank you. I was just saying that will be the end of it.
That's not going to happen.
Okay. I was also thinking when it comes to awkward transitions, I was thinking about just the awkwardness right now of the cost of everything.
Yeah.
And we can't, I don't
knowing
need
that you have to raise prices, but not wanting to do it.
Yes. I mean, like we can no longer.
We can't ignore it anymore.
No. And it really reminds me of where we were standing 2 years ago, right about the same time. Like the pancake breakfast has started and it was like, okay, but this will just be a couple months and stuff. And all of a sudden there was this
moment in time when we realized that this was going to go on for a while.
I gotta say, I think the last month for me has been, I've stepped into, I'm like, this isn't okay. This is what's present. This is what's happening.
Yes.
So how, what changes and adjustments do we need to make to our personal budgeting and our personal financial life? What changes and adjustments need to be made to each of our businesses? Like there's just there's definitely a lot of conversation within our walls about those types of things. And with my clients, they're kind of at this, it's interesting. It's like, it was an awkward transition. Like, when the price of gas went up and when the issues with supply chains and stuff, at first it was like, okay, it'll just balance out. Like it's not a big deal, but we're at that threshold where
we're at the point where people are realizing that just-in-time manufacturing isn't going to work for them anymore. And they're not capitalized for anything else. Yeah. They're not capitalized to have a huge inventory because they've been doing just-in-time manufacturing for so long. And now their customers are sick of late deliveries, are sick of the reasons. It's been a year. Why haven't you figured this out yet?
Yep.
And they're moving on to other suppliers who have made the change.
Yeah.
And so, people who we talk about this a lot. We talk about change adoption and, cutting edge versus bleeding edge versus lagging behind. And there's this gap. There's this moment in there where you can make these transitions and it's not a detriment.
Yes.
But
you have to be willing to stand in.
But you have to be willing to stand in the awkwardness. You have to be willing to stand in the discomfort. You have to be willing to look like an 80s wedding singer for just a couple of months.
Yes. And it's not permanent.
Right. No.
But it's just part. And you'd think at this point, like I kind of chuckled at our topic. And so I'm like, you'd think at this point, year 3, we'd be, I wouldn't be avoiding it.
But the thing is though, that, this is when stuff like this, and maybe this is another topic for another day.
Yes, I'm ready now.
Is when our expectations butt up against our privilege.
Oh.
Because we've been privileged for a very long time to be able to control a lot in our environment. We've been privileged to be able to get what we need when we need it without really much fuss. We've had a lot of choices. We've had a lot of autonomy in our country, in our industries, in our just our lives.
Yeah.
Our relative income levels, our color, our
all sorts of
things. All sorts of reasons and all sorts of things. And now when we don't have that and that gets taken away, it feels like it gets taken away by circumstance.
Right.
And it feels like we've lost something and that it's not fair.
There is some of that. It's a victimish
I'm having like these victimish toddler moments where I'm like, it's just not fair. Why should I have to do this?
Remember at the beginning, I'll say pandemic because I'm okay with that. But at the beginning of the pandemic, we all wanted to blame somebody.
Yeah.
And there were certain people that need to really blame someone to even move forward, to even breathe. And I get that. And you're right. I'm craving. It's like, who can I say? And there isn't a who again.
This is part of this transition.
It is.
It's awkward. We are all of a sudden, the light got shined, the cracks show.
Yeah.
And what we had been able to ignore in the past, we're no longer able to ignore. So it's not like, again.
So we're not alone in our awkward transitions.
We're not alone in our awkward transitions. Yeah. But I'm and I'm not going to speak for anybody else.
Yes, you.
I was and have been privileged enough in my life to be able to ignore a lot of this.
Absolutely.
The civil and social unrest, the divisions and divisive conversations, the severe impacts on a budget of inflation. Mm-hmm. I've been privileged to be able to avoid the vast majority of that for my life and not have to deal with it.
Yeah.
And now that I have to deal with it, it doesn't feel fair. And I feel like I'm and I'm fighting that feeling.
I think that's how I felt the first recession in 08.
Yeah,
that one, because I was too young for the 80s one.
Yeah.
But the 08 one.
And I was too young for 08. I mean, I felt put upon because I had just graduated from college again. Yeah. But I wasn't old enough to recognize and understand that that's what I was feeling and how I was butting up against.
Little business.
Yes,
that
you did.
And it was like, I'm like, wait, you cut off its whole food supply. Like, how does it live? It didn't, by the way.
so that's what
yes.
I think that there's something to be said for the autonomy to be able to recognize and be able to say, nope, we need to shift. Mm-hmm. And when we talk about leadership, or we're talking about that needs to be led. Because that is not authorized, not, I don't know, thrust upon other people, but you need to lead people through the awkwardness so that they understand that you knew that it was going to be awkward. Yes. That you knew there were going to be things that you couldn't plan for. You knew that there were going to be things that were going to come up, and we're still going to soldier ahead because where we're going is better than where we were.
And I think what I'm taking away from this conversation and kind of feeling in the moment is just there's very few times I would tell you that people over communicate.
Right.
You cannot over communicate enough during transitions.
I agree.
What are you thinking? Brené Brown has that thing. What is finished? Paint me finished. Paint me done. So when you're delegating something, it's like, yes, the other person, it's like, here's what I see as done on this project. Yeah. How do you see done? Yeah. Okay, how are we getting to that? Because I
agree with the caveat.
Yes.
You have to communicate the vision.
Yes.
Consistently.
Yeah,
messaging. It's like marketing the vision, like you're marketing your idea, right? Mm-hmm. But you cannot think out loud in front of people.
That's a good point.
Because that confuses everybody. That makes everybody nervous. Mm-hmm. It means that you're kind of waffling. You don't know where you're going.
That's a fair point.
And you cannot, and you have to remember, the minute you say something out loud, you lose control of the information.
Fair.
So if it's not ready to be communicated,
good point,
you can over communicate.
Good point. I guess I'm talking in terms of once you've delegated, like once it's out, and we're going to be shifting the software. I'll use that example. We're going to be shifting the software.
Yeah.
Here's paint. I'm going to paint you done 6 months from now. This looks like this.
Looks like this.
And here's how I make these decisions.
Right.
Each time I set up an appointment, I do it like this. And there's reasons I don't do this because I found this, and this happen. Right. And it takes us a lot of time. Oh, okay.
It takes us more time to unravel.
So communicating and it's not easy. That's why I was talking about communication, because as the business owner, it's so natural. It's so subconscious, actually, why you choose the things that you choose about these things that you're starting to delegate. Because a long time ago, you thought about it, but that was so 10 years ago. And now it's just automatic that you don't give people a ton of options about the time. You say, we're scheduling it for this. If that doesn't work, let us know.
Right.
But you know this because you did it multiple times.
Or please pick one of 3.
Yes.
Right.
And then we'll get it done.
Or if you're going to send the link, say, if you guys could please discuss which time you have, and then so-and-so please sign up for the link.
There we go. So only one person, maybe only one person gets the link.
So only one person gets the link. Clarity and expectation.
Yeah. But all of that knowledge is in our heads.
Right.
That you're right. You can't over communicate, but that how and why, once you're in the process, you can't, and understanding what they're thinking.
Right.
Encouraging them, like, well, tell me about what you were thinking with this and why you made this. Okay. There's parts of that are really good.
Yeah.
Like, let's keep parts of that. Yeah. Here's where I always come from. Oh, okay. Like, let's merge that. It's a lot of transitions are a lot of merger.
Yeah.
It is. And thank goodness for the curiosity of our staff. Yes. For going with us. Like, I think about, I was talking about them as being cats when we hand them things. That's not always probably easy because we hand them a lot of things.
Well, and our industry and our, our business, small business experience a lot of change.
Yeah.
And our industry experiences a lot of change, and we've grown really fast, which is a fast pace for that change.
Yeah.
So sometimes people are just tired and you need to give them a break in the change so that they can relax a little bit. But then you push forward because, if you break for too long, then you end up getting left behind.
Complacency's killer.
Yep. Well, that's it for us here at If These Heels Could Talk. This was a surprise topic for JoyGenea, but I think it went very well. Yes, awkward transitions. So speaking of awkward transitions, thank you so much for listening.